Hey there, Michael here. If you are an executive coach or thinking about getting into coaching, then stick around after the episode. I have something for you. In the meantime, here we go. The mystical, magical board of directors. When a lot of people get into a leadership position, this is their goal. But there's a lot to board of directors, whether it's securing your first role, making sure you don't join a toxic board, and also succeeding once you get there. There's a lot you need to know. And I brought along one of my really good buddies, Russell Dalgleish, who's going to walk us through this. In this special masterclass, in this part one, part two is going to come in a week, we're going to talk about an easy way to get your first board position. And it's probably easier than you think it is. So here we go.
Welcome to Leadership Mindset 2.0. Practical neuroscience and psychology to transform you from a tactical doer into a strategic leader. Here is your host, former social entrepreneur of the year and coach to some of the world's top executives, R. Michael Anderson.
Hello, everybody. Michael here, and we have a very special podcast and live session for you today. Now, what I get asked a lot about is about board of directors. What does a board of directors do? How do I make sure that I'm being really effective on my board of directors? So I called the best person I knew for this, and I want to introduce Russell Dalgleish. Now, Russell and I met at an event a while ago, and we just struck up a friendship. We started partnering. We did a tour of the Balkans where we were stuffed. Both Russell and I are about 6'6" or over. We're stuffed in a tiny little Yugoslavian car and had to drive through like 2 or 3 countries down there. But that's stories for another thing. And Russell is like a professional board member. He's the strategic guy you call when you want somebody to be on your board or you want the high level strategy. The Scottish government brings him in. The UK government brings him in. He started the Scottish Business Network, which is a group of Scottish business people really living around the world. Hi, Russell.
Hi, Michael. Good to be here.
Good. How many boards are you on right now?
It's a really interesting question, but if I could just come down to a definition of the subject. So when I talk about a company board, I don't mean it as restricted to the kind of legal terms that we would see in the United Kingdom or in the US. I mean it in terms of a group of advisors that you have that work alongside your business to help the business leader help them in their decision-making process. So these could be registered directors, they could be shareholders, they could be advisors, they could be a loose group of friends, it doesn't matter. It's that use of an external body to help you to manage the business. The board's job is to take you out of the business and to help you to work on that strategy and to help you overcome the challenges and to accept the new opportunities through making strategic decisions. And I work in a number of different formats on a board, and it's all about utilizing the voice of experts to help me.
Yes, that's really good, because the one thing I did look up before as I was preparing is, and this is just for everybody out there, that most people on this, not all the people that are listening to on this are from UK, US, or Europe. And obviously the UK is in Europe, but there's a little bit of a different setup. The UK and the US primarily have a one-tier board system. In the UK, it's a bit more of principle-based oversight, and you have executive and non-executive members. Russell, can you just walk us through the difference between an executive and a non-exec director?
So an executive director and a non-executive director in the UK both hold the same legal responsibilities towards the company. The difference in practicality is that the executive is in the business on a day-to-day basis, whereas the non-executive director pops in and pops out, usually a monthly board meeting and perhaps a few calls through the month. So the executive director is basically like the typical person running a company, and the non-exec director, the positions I hold, I'm there to sort of help with regularly reviewing how the company is progressing. The goal here is to address the challenge of running a company, because whether we're a one-person company or a public limited company, the challenge of running it and the challenge of executing it for customers is very different.
In the US, in the UK, have you been on any US boards?
I've held an executive directorship position on the board of a US staffing company, for example.
Okay. I've noticed a bit more of, there's a lot of compliance on both ends, UK and US. And in my experience, the US, the boards can differ a lot they seem a little bit more standard in the UK. The US can have larger boards, smaller boards, but I guess you can in the UK. But my experience has been they just can look and feel different. And then I guess in Europe, there's a two-tier board. There is a management and supervisory board. And it doesn't matter which country you're in, you can have a board of directors, but you can also have a board of advisors. And it's important for everybody to know that the board of directors will often have very strict rules and regulations and compliance, but a board of advisors can be set up, and that can really be whatever you want to use it for, correct?
Correct. And I would advise, I'm assuming on this call we're talking to people who are running smaller businesses. And to me, what is critical is the fact that if I'm running a small business, for example, say my business is called R. Michael Anderson, and my business is I'm an author and a public speaker, I would have an advisory board round about R. Michael Anderson with people with particular skills that can be called on to help to optimize the chance of the company being a success. This could be like a leading marketeer. It could be someone who has a lot of experience about the events sector. All these different people who can add that advice and service. And all the companies or all the brands, in effect, I have, all have advisory boards. And just one other part on this. There's a difference between a board and a board meeting. So I will have a board for all my brands, but they may not regularly meet. What I might do is I might call on those individuals for particular moments. The reason for that is that if you have an advisory board of, say, 8 people and you're looking at the branding, some people who are advisors have a more significant vote than others. So the person who runs finance is probably not going to be that important to working out what you're going to do with the brand, but the person with the marketing experience is going to be very important.
How would you differentiate if somebody should be on your board of directors or your board of advisors?
I would personally keep everyone as board of advisors. I would bring them on to the official board if they're going to be sharing confidential information with them. So, for example, for finance, I would have a finance director, and they would be officially on the board.
Okay. Could it be that you have your board of directors for a bit more compliance type thing? Like you might have an insurance person on the board, you might have an attorney person on your board, and sometimes the board of advisors can be more marketing and growth oriented, correct? You could just maybe have if you're in telecom, have a couple people from the telecom industry on there.
I run a global business group with about 10,000 members, and it is to do with linking people together in the business community who are Scottish. So before I started that, I drew the advisory board. So on the advisory board, I wanted someone who was an expert in global networks, someone who was an expert in social enterprises, because that's the legal structure. I wanted someone who was an expert in finance, and I wanted someone who had run $1 billion company. Because I knew that if I told you that was my board of advisors, you would go, that's an important company. Because to attract those individuals, you have to be able to show not only your ambition, but also that you can be trusted. Because those individuals are lending or loaning their brand to you.
Interesting. Great. Thank you for that. I have a list of questions here. First one that I get most often, how do I get on a board?
I get asked that question all the time. And it's people saying, I wish to have a career, Russell, which consists of me, what we call a portfolio career. So I will have non-exec or advisory board positions with a number of companies. And I speak to these people and they tell me, I've spent several £1,000s with a company which has in some way trained me to hold that role, but I'm finding it very difficult to secure my first position. And to be honest, I find that quite difficult to understand because we have a world of startups in our community in the US and Europe and the UK and across the world. Every one of those startups would benefit from having your advice. Now, how would you go about doing it? Well, I would presume I would contact them and get a meeting. I would then understand what they're trying to achieve, and then I would offer to help. I would not accept a non-exec director position with them because that comes with some legal requirements and responsibilities, but I would start by acting as an advisor to them. And my first piece of advice would be, we need to start having regular board meetings so we can refresh what's happening with the company. And it's as straightforward as that. But there seems to be a myth about it that you've got to go through some recruitment process or something. I don't do that. I just simply track startups, go along to events and see who I feel I could engage with. Now, that's engaging not only because I believe the solution or the market they're addressing is appropriate to me, but very much about the individual. So, and I really want to work with people who I think I'm going to enjoy spending time with.
Yeah, I see all these companies out there that you can pay thousands of dollars to, and they tell you that they will get you on a board. Personally, I've never known anybody to have any success with those organizations. I was tagged to be president of a board of directors when I was in the States, and it was all by relationship.
Yeah.
And it was all by referral. If you're out there and you want to be on a board, Russell gives amazing things. And what also came to my mind is you have to know your strategic value and you have to know your brand. You can't be like, hey, I'm in marketing. You have to be like, hey, I'm in semiconductor marketing into Asia. And then you want to go like Russell's an expert networker, go network with companies that are expanding to Asia in semiconductors. And then build the relationship with the money people, the VCs, the private equity people. Some staffing firms, some executive search firms can help with this. This is an exercise in your personal brand and your networking. In addition, start with nonprofits or different types of advisory boards, because that will give you a lot of people in the States. I think it's the same in the UK. They'll join nonprofit boards in order to gain a really high level network. And that will get you in the right room and develop the relationships with high level VPs, CXOs of larger organizations, and really let them start trusting you in things.
For everybody on this call, if I was to contact you and say, I think I can help you, then your response would be, well, I'd like to find out how. Now, there's only really three things anyone needs with their business. We need someone to help us get more money. That's either investment or sales or something to bring in more capital, or it's to help us to reduce cost. For example, if our company's struggling, we may want to reduce cost, and you bring me in to help you with that. Or the third reason is more soft, which is more around about compliance, or it's around about green, or it's around about something. But in effect, the first two are the only ones that someone's really thinking about. And of those, help me grow will always take attention. So for example, if I was to contact Michael and say, I think I can advise you, and Michael would say, well, what do you know about what I do? And if I was to say, I'm connected to the owners of every large event in Europe, or I run a publishing house, or I sit on the board of a university and we're looking for people to help educate our students, then Michael's quite likely to forward the conversation to the next level because I've proved I could be of value to him. What I've done in my career doesn't matter. What matters is how you can bring value to those you want to work with.
Well put. And before you get on a board, make sure you want to be on a board, because I quit a board after 4 months. I was like, I'm at that stage in my entrepreneurial career. I wanted to give back. And so I joined in California, a pretty prominent nonprofit, and I knew the chair, super nice guy. I met the people, very nice. It was like a compliance board. This is a nonprofit. We would have 2.5-hour meetings, and I would just be so bored. I'd just fight not to look at my phone and my email. And after a couple of months, I told the chair, I'm like, look, I know I committed to a year, but I am not enjoying this. I'm not really contributing. And he's like, Mike, don't worry. We have a line of people that want that thing. I still did some stuff with them, but being on a board, you want to make sure you understand what you're getting into, whether you even want to do it or not. Maybe it's something interesting or not for you. Bradley, do you want me to handle this by chat, or do you want to come in and have a little chat with us?
Yeah, I can just go ahead and ask the questions. We have some unique access to rare earth and critical metals. We've gained some interest lately. The space we're in, though, does require a significant amount of capital for startup. And so I've been meeting, various people. And just one of the reasons for coming into this meeting was would it be appropriate to say, hey, I would like this particular individual. In fact, I've got a guy who's worked in semiconductors for a long time to be on the board, but also to invest personally, with his own funds. But also, as you mentioned, one of the things you're asking, hey, be on our board, but also you're going to help us raise funds. I mean, is that sort of an appropriate ask? I think that sounds appropriate, but just sort of asking for advice on how to engineer that conversation.
I think that sounds completely appropriate. If I had someone who liked what I did, understood the sector, understood my vision and wanted to support it, and they were thinking about putting some money in, and they also had a network of wealthy chums, then I would bite their hand off and say, let's do this.
Okay. One of the things I'm struggling with, I'm the engineer, the scientist, the technologist. I do have some, seasoned business partners in the company. And I suppose, and so one of my challenges is sort of handing off these business decisions to my partners, because they would be the ones who would sort of negotiate the terms, here are the number of shares, here's the investment, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd love some advice on how to sort of manage those discussions while also really trying to be the science and technical officer of my company, if you will.
I would always hire professional advice or find somebody to do it, because I think it works from a compliance point of view, but also from an emotional point of view.
Yeah.
So having someone externally to look at it and say, this is what we think the shareholding should be, and then people can decide if that seems appropriate or not. I see too many people and I know this is, people don't like it when I say this. I see so many people wasting so much time trying to work out how to divide up shares on a company that's never going to be successful or never going to be sold. You just need something that's practical and looks like it'll work.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, because I do spend a lot of time fretting over that. Unfortunately, I appreciate the advice, because we do have a CPA on retainer who, like, that's what he does. So thank you for that advice. Yeah. Okay.
Edward.
I just thought I would rather have 10% of $1 billion than 100% of $1 million, Bradley.
Of course. Yes. Understood. Yes.
That's just what that conversation made me think.
Right. No, I appreciate that very much. We've been through a couple of negotiations with people who were, aiming into the tens, hundreds of millions. We weren't quite up to, well, in fact, it's strange. We look at these assets, and we actually do have access to what ends up being about $10 billion worth of metal. I appreciate those numbers, and I like just and thinking of it in terms of order of magnitude is quite useful. So, thank you.
Jennifer, did you have a question, something to say?
Yeah, kind of maybe bouncing off some of the previous discussions. Thank you, Russell. That was very useful. Some of the insights that you gave. And I'm looking at it from the other side, where I'm working for a big pharma company. I've been in big pharma for 20 years, and I'm looking at other opportunities now, and actually applied for a chief of staff role for a startup. And because I really believe in what they're doing, like, this is really cool. It's a startup. They're doing something in AI medical imagery. And then I thought, well, hang on, if I don't get the chief of staff role, maybe I could be of service in being a board member or an advisor. And that's what I was kind of looking at, like, how do I go? Do I just call them? But I think the way that you position it is the right approach. Just reach out and say, this is the value I can bring. And then some of the questions that I have is, if they agree to that, as you were saying, Michael, like, what does the job really entail of being an advisor? What is the time commitment? Just so that I frame it properly when I actually contact them.
So one of the advantages on being an advisor rather than a member of the team is that you're in control of the relationship. So once if either of us were to take a job with someone where they're paying us on payroll, then they're going to tell us what to do. And when you get to my age, that doesn't sit very well. So the advantage with the advisory position is that I remain in control. So I'll tell you the methodology I follow is that I identify or I'm approached by someone who I think I may be able to help. And what I start by doing is I volunteer my time. And the reason I'm volunteering my time is just to sort of feel it out. Does the product work? Is the market there? Am I enjoying the discourse with them? Does this feel like my kind of world? After a couple of months, if that seems to be going well, I would then suggest that I'm putting this time in. We identify a project element, and I would go and deliver that project element for a financial fee. And if that all goes very smoothly and I get paid and I deliver, then I would look at potentially taking a directorship or an official advisory role with them. But in order to follow that model, you do have to have other sources of income coming in to fund your lifestyle. So it's always difficult with the first one. I think we've all got a tendency to undervalue what we do. So if I look at yourself and you've got experience of working for major pharma, then anyone with a biotech, etc., is going to be desperate to speak to you, but they'll be shy. They'll be shy to contact you. So if you find some way to engage with them, that's the way to trigger it off. And the way I would do that is I would use something like LinkedIn, and I send out connection requests to say the 10 companies I'm interested in, 5 of the CEOs accept, and I drop them a message going, I'm intrigued as to what you're doing. It'd be great to have a call. By the way, my background is working with 3 of the largest pharma organizations in the world. They'll take the meeting. Yeah. And then you sort of take it from there. But I find the interpersonal piece is very important.
I like that approach. It's step by step. And then I think that helps on both sides for you also to see, is this something that I want to get involved in? Is it what I think it is? And then you can progressively increase your involvement.
And one thing I see in the UK is people move too quickly to accepting a non-exec directorship role. Now, the risk, you carry legal responsibilities. So in the UK, for example, the board is responsible for the data compliance of the company. If I'm not only going to take a non-exec position once I've done a full audit of the company, and I'm happy that they're covered all the bases and they're fully compliant with data and with everything else. So it's to always protect my own position and in a certain extent my reputation as well. Whereas if I'm just giving my time for free, and I may have a contract to cover it under my insurance, but that's the way I prefer to work.
Clear, thank you.
Yeah, Edward.
I wanted to share my perspective, Jennifer, from the other side. I started a trade union in the UK 4.5 years ago. And so, it's still a young trade union or business, if you like. If someone was to contact me and say, I've done my research on you, I love what you're doing, I have a passion for what you're doing, I think I can help in this way, I'd be flattered. I would respect and admire you for having got in contact with me. And I would definitely want to have a conversation with you about how you think you would be able to help in our vision moving forward. So I would welcome that approach. I think what I heard from you in your question to Russell was a little bit of trepidation, perhaps, in reaching out to this biomed company. But just as Russell has said, I think they would very likely be delighted to hear from somebody who could help them further their goals.
Yeah, definitely position it as, what value you can bring to them.
If you have a conversation, I would just ask, where are they at with stuff? They might not even know where you could help them. Yeah, great back and forth. Thanks for bringing that up, Jennifer. Okay, now that you've heard how to get on a board and what value you need to bring, In part 2, next week, we're going to break down how to spot a toxic board before you join one, what boards get wrong, and how to maximize your impact once you're in the room. And look, if you want more Russell, and everybody wants more Russell, we put his contact information in the show notes so you can reach out to him. He's a very giving guy. So if you have any questions about this or want to talk to him more about anything, he will absolutely answer you. So hit him up. I'll see you next week. Hey, one more thing before we go. If you ever thought about executive coaching, or you are a coach who wants to coach leaders at a higher level, or if you're a business owner or high-level leader that needs to connect with other high-level leaders, and you want the tools and skills to do that, then I have something for you. I'm starting my second cohort of the Executive Coaching Certification. This is a 3-month live program where you learn the credibility, the tools, and the presence to sit nose to nose with high-level people and really dig deep with them, form immense connections with them, gain their trust, and get everything that you need to coach them on a powerful, deep level. Now, there's a lot of stuff about coaching out there, for sure, but a lot of it's on the behavioral level. This deep coaching works on the identity level, which is what senior execs crave, but they have difficulty finding. Because this type of coaching requires growth in you so that you can have the presence, the relationship with yourself, so that you can tell them exactly what they need. Not help them with accountability, not helping them with the priorities. They're already high achievers. They have everything that they need. What coaches that try to coach executives lack is they lack that depth. And that's exactly what this program gives. So if this is of at all interest to you, go to the URL rmichaelanderson.com/certification, or somewhere on this page or the show notes, there is a link, and read more about it. We got amazing case studies. If you have any questions, drop me a note. But last year was the first year I ran this, and it went better than my wildest dreams. And the coaches who I'm still in contact with are coaching leaders at a higher level than they thought that they were capable of. And they're doing this every day. So if you have any interest in doing this, check it out, drop me a note, and see if it's right for you. Because it's an amazing investment, both in you and your own growth, as well as your career growth. And maybe I'll see you there.